Ding, 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 ding. Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of
B-side. After recording a recent episode, we had a discussion with our guest Pat about a previous movie discussed on Talking Pictures Trivia. We started to dive further into if we thought the movie Afterlife depicted purgatory or it was something else.
It was a beautiful movie.
Yeah, it was okay.
That was
cool.
like a sonata piece or a chamber piece. Yeah.
And this is in Japanese?
Yeah, it's also another director who's gotten some press in America. He either won or was nominated for the Foreign Oscar for a movie called Shoplifters a few years ago, maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. And he's been working for decades. And we watched one movie kind of about the afterlife, and it was really kind of a small, kind of placid. It's like chamber music, very small, not particularly dramatic. Very placid, but very calm, and still very deep, kind of the still deep water type thing. That was great. I really love that.
See, everyone else didn't agree with me. They didn't agree with me that it was a representation of purgatory. That's what it was.
It's the thing with.
I think it was purgatory.
The thing with purgatory, though, is like purgatory is in almost every.
You said
tradition.
Suffering. It's waiting. It's not suffering.
It's suffering. It depends. It depends. In Catholic tradition, it's you are suffering for your sins. It depends. Like in Taoist culture, I think it's a little different.
Yeah.
But like if you think of our representation of purgatory is like a lot of it's filtered through Dante, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily theology, but in Dante, it's a mountain. It's 7 levels, and in each level, you are, depending on your dominant sin, suffering for that sin. So if it's pride, you have to run around with a rock on your back, like just carry a giant.
But that's
rock.
an interpretation because it's also cleansing or purifying. They're getting rid of all their thoughts. They're thinking of one thing
it's
they
it's
need
the
to
purifying, but it's suffering to purify.
Listen,
This might be different. I know
in,
the Taoist
stuck in
tradition
limbo for a certain,
Limbos are for
but
babies.
limbo is a different thing.
Unbaptized babies.
Limbo in Catholic tradition, limbo is like if you haven't sinned but haven't seen the light. So, like again, going back to Dante, not that Dante's, a theologian, but he does affect our understanding, and eventually it does filter into Catholic thought, which is limbo is the place where like the Greek thinkers go because they're pre-Christian, they're pre-Christ, but they are Aristotle and Plato are incredibly important contributors to Christian thought. And so we place them in limbo with the unbaptized babies who recently have been freed from limbo.
Well, that's nice.
I think it was John Paul II freed them from limbo. He said they just go to heaven. It's fine.
JP too. So actually, Nick, if you had said limbo, that's probably actually what you were thinking.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I think it's also like.
I mean, we're splitting hairs because we're not saying Catholic definition of purgatory. Tom's speaking Catholic definition of purgatory.
Right, there are Eastern definitions of purgatory, and I think they are like I think the Taoist Taoist also has a definition of purgatory that is that I think is also predicated on this kind of suffering.
There could have been an argument that purification of all your other thoughts, because in that movie, Pat, they could only take one memory with them. So in the sense, they're cleansing themselves of all their other memories, and they're taking one to them to the afterlife.
Okay.
That could have been an interpretation, but I did not go into it.
So purgatory in Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism is something called Naraka, and Naraka is suffering to be purified in order to get.
But the key here is in this movie, you are literally purging all your memories. You can only take one.
Yeah, you can only take one. I think my problem with the idea of calling it purgatory is that it's not necessarily a kind of a suffering to purge. Right? A purge kind of implies, or purge in purgatory implies you are redeemed by kind of burning off the bad.
But you don't think it would be a challenge to say, I'm going to forget everything else I've known in life. I can only bring one thought. It would take if I had 1 week to figure one, I would be suffering.
Yeah, okay, but for a lot of people it wasn't. For a lot of people, this was a kind of a wonderful release from the pain of living. And for a lot of people, it also, I mean, I think of the one guy with the sound in the house. This is one guy, Pat, and this should be a stat. There's this one guy who, this one guy who in it, they had to ask his memory, and he goes, he hated everything about his life. He doesn't want to talk about it. And the one memory he keeps is being in the dark as a child in a clubhouse and hearing the sounds. And he goes, I just want that, just the dark, silent sounds. And for him, the forgetting of his life was incredibly relieving. He was, because he doesn't have to, whatever that was so horrible about his life, we don't learn what it is. He doesn't have to deal with. And then there was one girl who is one woman, but she's developmentally no past 9 years of age.
Okay.
And she just has this memory of cherry blossoms, of the blossoms kind of raining down upon her. And she has this, this scene where she's kind of recalling this, and they're filming it. And it's this kind of beautiful scene of just pleasure for her. And to call this kind of like purging by pain, I don't know. It seems like it's not really capturing what's happening in that afterlife.
I think based on like a strict Catholic or Christian interpretation, I completely understand why when I say purgatory, you have some thoughts against that. And if you look
in an Eastern context,
no, but even if you look, and again, I'm looking into even like the definition of what limbo is in the intermediate state. That's when I saw that movie. That was what I felt it was embodying, like what I would think kind of like a purgatory, or if we want to be even more liberal and say more of a limbo. But I thought of it as a way station, in between the two places.
And I think limbo makes sense to me, especially for the staff. So again, Pat, because you haven't seen this movie.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the movie you didn't see? That was a Japanese film from 1998.
Yeah. The staff that runs this way station are people who never selected a memory. So you have to select a memory, and then you have a week to do it. It's filmed, and then you can move on to the next life, whatever that is, after the movie's been filmed and screened. The staff are people who've never selected it. So they're bound to this way station, kind of processing these people who are coming through. And that seems more to me like a limbo, right? It's not, you're not being purged of anything. You are not
purged of memories.
Salvation.
Wait. An important piece of this puzzle, guys. In a lot of Western religions, life is meant to be celebrated and enjoyed, and you're just trying to stay away from sin. You're trying to stay away from the evil. In a lot of Eastern religions, life is suffering, and you're trying to reduce that suffering. So therefore, when you're in this afterlife situation, you're not excited about your life, and then you get to bring one thing with you. It's more, holy crap, this whole thing was suffering. I guess I'm going to bring one thing with me. I think that's also, they're not actively purging things, because in an Eastern religion, being very broad here, you wouldn't want a lot of that stuff with you because life is suffering.
That's an interesting interpretation. Yeah.
I'm going to have to watch this movie. So, but if I can, I would love to join again, but a Japanese movie would be definitely one, but I would love to watch the Afterlife one. And I really have enjoyed this B-side conversation associated with that podcast.
This unplanned B-side.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had a purgatory limbo conversation.
Seriously. That's and from your context there, Nick, it sounds like you want to call it purgatory.
Yes. Yes.